Hi, this is Zach here with the Bulletin Board Heroes here at Zach's Traders Cafe for Monday the 10th of July. Starting off with the FTSE 100, which is becalmed at the lower levels. RSI 26, which is in the oversold territory. We haven't been this oversold since back in March, and obviously there was a decent rebound there. General rule in the recent past has been with the FTSE that basically dips towards the RSI 30 level have been buy points, even if they are only temporary. So we've seen that over the last year, and especially in October last year, that was a decent example of how the RSI gives a forward signal. Otherwise, in terms of where we are now, this is probably the low, but there could be one final shakeout, maybe towards 7,200, just to stop out the people who are buying into the index now. If you're cautious, you probably wait for an end-of-day close back above 73.30, which was the last March support there for this market. Otherwise, maybe wait for the RSI to get back above the 30 level as a sign that we are turning around. Moving on to the DAX, where there was the threat of a potential triple top breakdown, but here we've so far bear trapped from below the old May support there around 15,600. Let's see if we can get back up within that rising trend channel from October. Initial resistance here at the 50-day line, 15,900, and otherwise on the downside we'd be looking at maybe a test of 15,000, the 15,000 area over the course of the rest of July, but a little bit in between and in between on the DAX at the moment. On to the Dow, where we had the fear that there would need to be a test of the 50-day moving average, even if we were then going to break higher. So far, we are near to that 50-day line there, around 33,600. Ideally, want to see an end-of-day close back above 34,000 to prove that this market is heading higher. Otherwise, there is the risk of not only a test of the 50-day line, but the 200-day moving average at 32,900. The negative at the moment is the way that not only do we have an island top there, gapping up and then gapping down, but also the RSI has now fallen below the neutral 50 level, so that suggests that the weight here is to the downside. On to Bitcoin, which is also in a sort of sideways type of range, hopefully in a bull trap here, but really the recent range 29,500 to 32,000 probably will only need an end of day close through 31,000 to take us up towards the top of that rising trend channel from June last year as high as 35,000, but at this stage looking rather becalmed. The positives here are the way that the 50 and 200-day moving averages are both rising, and that gives hopefully a positive spin on the current price action, and also the RSI still above neutral 50 at 57, which is actually a very good place to build a base and then head higher. Onto the stocks, and we start off with one of the bears' favourites, Canadian Overseas. Here it's interesting that after today's news, it looks like the shares are trying to break out of that falling wedge that they've been in for the last couple of months. The actual line there around 2.25, so an end of day close above 2.25, could see the shares heading back to, I suppose, resistance on the way down at 3 pence. Best case scenario up to the 50-day line at 4, but obviously that seems to be a long way away at the moment, and we might not even get that end of day close above 2.25. The other point to note is that we do have bullish divergence, so lower lows for July, but higher RSI trace, so that again backs the idea at least of an intermediate rebound for this stock. Onto a stock which has been in a decent uptrend for much of the recent past, GreenX Metals. Here we've bounced above the 50-day moving average, that 50-day line there at 46 pence, but the bounce on the latest news, which is very positive actually, looks very positive in terms of Greenland, means that we're now looking for the shares to head up to the top of that rising trend channel from back in October as high as 70 pence by the end of next month. If you're cautious, I suppose you'd wait for an end of day close or break of that resistance line there from last month around current levels. RSI back above 50, so that is a positive there as well. Moving on to Hemogenics, which has managed to rebound after today's better news from the company regarding the FDA. Here we've got a line of resistance from last month. That's around 1.75 pence, and above 1.75 we could then see the shares head up towards 2.4 pence as soon as the end of next month. Ideally, we don't have any lows lower than today's and Friday's support around 1.3 pence, but probably the trade there is to wait for a break of that resistance line from last month. On to one of the stocks of the day, Helium 1, and here you can see that we had a brief bear trap from below the basically this year's support, and I think actually even actually went very near to the all-time lows for the shares, around 3 and 3/4 pence. I did identify that in a commentary before. Current situation is that above the 50-day line at 6.6 pence, we're looking for up to 8 pence initially, maybe over the next few days, and best case scenario target up to that August resistance line projection from last year, up to 9.5 pence as soon as the end of this month. But the key here is holding that 50-day line area, which at the moment it looks as though the shares will manage to do. That one-day island reversal, very, very powerful signal as well, so watch out for that on the subsequent price action. On to Loopup, which doesn't get much coverage here or anywhere else. Here got the potential of a rising trend channel base, recent support around 1.9 pence, above that looking for 2.9 pence as soon as the end of next month, and a nice turnaround there in terms of the recent candles and the gap close that we had at the end of last month. On to Lexington, which gives us reminds us of one of the lessons of the market, where shares that, or companies that have raised money that have rising share prices after that, tend to be very bullish situations. Here we bounced above the floor of that rising trend channel from August, and the 200-day moving average around 5.6 pence. Above that looking for 7 pence initially, maybe by the end of this month, and then up to as high as 9.5 pence, retesting May resistance by the end of next month. But the key here, holding that 200-day line and the 2022 uptrend line. On to stock which has certainly been in the wars of late, Musicmagpie here. A bit like Canadian, looks like we're breaking out of a wedge formation around 17 pence, above 17 pence, looking for the 200-day line at 24 pence over the next week, well, the next few weeks, let's say, just to give the share some time. Best case scenario, up to the top of that March trend channel at 35 pence by the end of next month, but we need to hold 15 pence in the interim. On to Ondo, which had another decent RNS, very decent actually, and the shares have gapped up again. They gapped up in April, they gapped up again through that resistance line from last month at 20 pence. Above 20 pence, we're looking for the top of that rising trend channel from March as high as 32 pence, and that could happen as soon as the end of next month, I think, to be fair on in terms of the price action for the stock. One of the most difficult stocks at the moment in terms of both the fundamentals and the technicals is Premier African, and here basically had a gap fill rebound of 0.46. Above that looking for a retest of the 200-day moving average, which was the predicted peak on the last rebound. That's at 0.62. Might even get up to 0.69 and fill the gap from last month, but at the moment we're just looking for the 200-day line, especially given the way that it's actually rising, so that is actually a helpful indicator at the moment. On to a stock which I have to say that is not the most high-profile one, RBG Holdings, but here again it looks as though we've got a rising trend channel base, bullish divergence there with a slightly lower low for July, but higher RSI trace. That suggests that we could head up to 35 pence as soon as the end of next month. End of day close above recent neckline resistance at 26 pence is what the bulls are looking for at the moment. Onto a stock which is going from strength to strength at the moment, Rainbow Rare Earths. It's just hitting the top of that falling trend channel that we've had since June last year. That's around, we'll call it 13 pence. End of day close above 13, and we could be heading up to 17 pence at an April 2022 resistance line projection as soon as the end of this month. Don't want to see any price action below 11 pence in the meantime. Also looks as though we've got both the 50 and 200-day lines rising, so we could be heading into a golden cross, and that tends to be the strongest part in the cycle. Moving on to the last three, and a stock which doesn't get much airtime here, but here it is today. Tops Tiles. Just looks as though there's something going on here. We've got a rising trend channel from September last year. Top of the channel there at 60p, and hopefully we could hit 60p by the end of this month. Ideally, there's no price action back below the floor of the latest gap at 49. So above 49, looking for 60. And in fact, we're hopefully looking for rather more than that, maybe even up to the 67 pence level, if the shares really get off the ground, and especially if they can stay above or get above the May resistance or 2023 resistance around 54 pence. Another relatively infrequent name is Tandem, and here couldn't resist this one with a gap close buy signal back on at the end of June. That closed above the gap at 209. And since then it's been up and away, breaking a line of resistance there from March, and the 50-day moving average at 234, above that initial target, 259 at the 200-day moving average, but the big prize here maybe over the next 1 to 2 months, as high as £3.40 at the top of that broadening triangle from back in November. Finishing off with Univision, and here we managed to hit our initial target. In fact, we exceeded it on Friday. I missed that on Friday, up to 0.65. Above 0.4 on an end-of-day close basis, looking for as high as 0.7 at a June resistance line projection, which is basically the upper parallel of that triangle that we had from last year at the same month. That's it from me today. More updates tomorrow.